Hello. Today I'm running a 9800 GTX Plus, which is just behind this fan here. There you can see it's a Palit card, which isn't in focus because I can't focus and hold this fan from destroying my fingers at the same time. It's got a custom PCB with quite a meaty VRM and two 6-pin power connectors. And compared to a reference card, which I have just on the desk here, this is a Zotac card. You can see that is the standard VRM there. It's just got 4+1 phases, and then the memory chips around the edge. You can run these in 3-way SLI, and I've done before. They normally only have a single 8-pin on them, so they're usually quite power efficient, but this one has dual 6 pins, so it does overclock a bit better. Now it's maxed out so far when I've been running Heaven at 53 degrees Celsius, and with this big fan in front of it, which I put on afterwards, it's only maxed out at about 49 or 48, I think. Yeah, 49 is the highest it got with this, since I've put this fan in front of it. And I'm at 801 megahertz on the core and 1200 on the memory. I can't change the voltage in Afterburner, so it's just set at whatever it's set at. The card can do much higher than this, but I'm just testing it LOD at the moment. So the plan with this card, once I've finished testing LOD settings on air, is I'm actually going to put a water block on it. So I got my GPU block, which is currently on this Quadro FX 3700, which I was running for a competition earlier. So you can see it has these mounting things here. It's a universal block. It's a water-cool heat killer GPU Core LT, and it just has a little copper base, and then on the VRM I've got some of these like little copper heat sinks, as you can see there, that I can put on the VRM if needed. Most cards are actually alright if I just put a fan over the VRM area, because this VRM on the reference cooler, it has thermal pads which go all over the VRM components, but when I was benching it on water I just used a fan on them and it seemed fine with that. On this card, only one side of the VRM, which you can't quite see under there, but there's actually a little plate cooling them on that side, and then there's nothing on this side, on the high side. So I'll probably just leave it like that and put a fan on it with the water block, and we should get some much higher overclocks. So I'll max it out on air, see what it can do, give you an update, and then I'll show you putting the water block on, and we'll see what it can do underwater. So while I'm waiting for the 9800 GTX Plus to finish running Heaven, I'm going to take the water block off the Quadro, and I'm going to put the stock cooler, which I have here, back on, and I've labelled it, say it's not going to have any thermal pads and paste on it, and that there's no point running it on air, and I can just put this water block on. So that's organised. I've got all the screws already put in the right holes, so I know which ones they go in. I'm going to take these RAM heat sinks off as well, obviously. So there we go, that's it. The card is done. I've got my note on it there, so I know what to do next time. You can see all the screws on the back of it are in. So that's it for this bit. Now all I have to do is put the block on the 9800 GTX Plus and then run that. So we've reached the limit on air cooling. The highest clocks I managed to get stable to run through the whole test was 850 on the core and 1210 on the memory. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the card out of the system. Also, by the way, the score was 1337. So now I'm going to take the card out of the system and I'm going to put the water block on it and hook it up to the water loop, which you can see the tubes for there and there. And yeah, and then we're going to carry on underwater and see how far it can go. So here I have the Palit card out of the system. You can see the stock cooler is pretty decent actually. It's got a decent fin stack with 2 heat pipes and a pretty small single fan. So we'll fix that now and put the water block on it. So what we're going to do is we're only going to take the GPU heatsink off, I think, and I'm actually going to leave the plates for the memory for now, and hopefully they'll fit with the water block on as well. So it's still got its warranty sticker on, so nobody's ever bothered doing this before by the looks of it, and that also probably means the paste has never been changed. Now with the stock cooler, it on 100% fan speed, it was running at 53 degrees max. And then once put the fan in front of it, it was getting about 48 degrees max, I think. So underwater we should be under 30 degrees, around 30 degrees mark, maybe just under hopefully. So we'll see what happens. Pretty crusty is that. So, there we have it. There is the core, all nice and shiny. So now I'm going to test fit the GPU block. I'm going to make sure these 4 screws are set correctly first, so that they're the right size, obviously. That was a bit easy. So what we'll do is we'll get the box again, put the water block on the box, and just plonk the card on top of it basically. And look at that, it just happens to be the same size as the Quadro that I was using it on earlier, which makes it nice and easy, doesn't it? So what I'll do now is I'll put some thermal paste on the GPU core, and today, well at the moment, I've got a tube of PK3. So you just put a little bit in the middle. It doesn't actually matter if you use too much. It's better to use too much than not enough. So then I'll take the GPU and plonk it on top of there, like that. And then I'm going to put these little washers on. One there, one on there, one on there, and these are very hard to pick up. One on there. Then just screw these on in sort of a cross pattern. Now it is quite difficult on such a small core like this to get the water block even, because it's such a large surface, and the other thing I need to check as well is that it's not catching on these ram plates. I don't know whether you can see in there, but basically it's not quite touching the PCB. That angle's probably best. You can see through that little gap there, therefore it isn't actually touching that RAM plate and the PCB, and therefore not making contact with the core. And the other way you can tell as well if it's even on the core is you can sort of look underneath and you can see the core underneath there, and check that it's evenly screwed down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tighten it up a bit in all the corners, and then just check that it's straight. But I'm going to check that against the light up here, so you won't be able to see that unfortunately, but you get the idea, I hope. So once you've got the water block on, there's only one thing to do really, and that's test it. So you can see there, it looks a lot better now with the water block on, and we'll see how it goes. I'll put a fan over this area here so that the VRM gets nice and cool, and the memory also. What I might do is I might just wipe that heatsink off, and I'm going to put these copper heatsinks on top of the memory heatsink. I don't know whether it'll make a difference or not, but we'll soon find out, I suppose. Whoa, Jay's 2 cent style slow motion water flowing through GPU, but the water's clear. Amazing. So now the GPU is underwater, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a 140mm fan propped up against that area of the card, and then we'll turn it on and we shall see if it boots up. Hopefully it will. Seems to be okay so far. We'll know once we get into Windows, just by the temperatures really. So I'll put the camera on the tripod so no one gets seasick. There we go. Make the desktop a nice colour so you can see the screen. So we're going to go into MSI Afterburner, and it is 23 degrees, which you can't see because you're too far away from the screen. So you can see there it's idling at 23-24 degrees, and I'll just do one quick run of Heaven at stock speed, which is 745 and 1100, and then we'll see what the temperatures are like after it's run Heaven just the once. So we've just finished Heaven. As you can see, I've got a score of 1180, which is irrelevant because it's at stock speed. But as you can see, the maximum temperature on that run was only 28 degrees, which is very nice. So what I'll do now is I'll start overclocking the GPU. I'm going to start where I left off on the air cooler and then work my way up. and then we'll see how high we can go on water, if we can go any higher that is. We'll soon find out. Okay, so I've finished overclocking the 9800 GTX Plus underwater. As you can see, I've put a few more little heat sinks around the memory and on some of the VRM modules as well. So in the end, with my i5 at 4.6 and the card, we got up to 860 and 1397. So we got a score of 1431.475. Now on air cooling we were at 860 on the GPU core, but we could only get 1210 on the memory. So the memory clock has actually improved a lot more than the core clock, which is a bit strange. But if I go over anything like 860, it tends to crash for some reason. So I don't know, but I was able to get a huge boost on the memory clock, which is really good. So I think the core would need just like a volt mod or something to get up to a decent speed. So you can see here actually 29th out of 64 now on hardware bot. So that's not too bad. I mean, I don't get many points for it, but better than like nearly last place, which I was in to start with. I think on air cooling I got about 100 points less. Was it 1331? I don't know. Anyway, I was down here somewhere. I think I was down there. So that's about 40th. So we've gone up quite a lot, even if we haven't done particularly well, or as well as I'd hoped anyway. I was hoping to get up to like 900 on the core really, but yeah, it didn't happen. The memory's very impressive though. It is a lot faster than I expected, so that is good. So I am going to try maybe a different benchmark now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. Probably 3D Mark 06 or 03. I'll have to see. So I'll update you if I get a higher score with this anyway. So I think I'm going to do 3D Mark 03 next. I've done this before with a Pentium D 945 at 4.7 GHz. So with the i5, I think I might get a higher score. It was also air cooled as well, so we should be able to overclock it higher. Now before we were only at 860 on the core and 1150 on the memory, so I should be able to beat that quite easily, I hope. So because I'm on water, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to 860 on the core and probably like 1350 on the memory, and we'll see how that goes to start with. So with this benchmark you only need to do the game test and the CPU test. You don't need the feature test or sound test to get a score. And I'm also going to lower the resolution of the screen as well. There we go. That should improve the score a little bit. So we've got to be, what was it? 44,023. So that shouldn't be too hard. We'll see how this goes. Yeah. Okay, so we got the first score, and it's 56,188. So that's already the highest score that I've ever got. So I'm going to screenshot that. So now that it passed at that, I'm going to move it up to, I think we'll go 1388 first. We don't want to go the full 1397 in one big jump because it could potentially crash. So we'll try this and we'll see what happens at this. So we got a slightly better score again. This was with the memory at 1388. We got 56.54.0 this time. So we're going to carry on up and see how high we can get. So one of my friends on Skype has just told me to use the Afterburner V2 skin instead of the V3 skin, and so now I have the ability to overclock the shader clock and the core clock independently, so I can go up and down on here as well as here without them being linked together, which is pretty nice. So it was at 2133, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to max out the memory first, and then I'm going to try and increase the shader clock and leave the core clock where it is now. So that should be interesting. So I'll run it with the higher memory speed, and then I'll try increasing the shader clock. So unfortunately it crashed with the memory at 1397. So I'm going to leave the memory at 1388. I'm going to leave the core at 860, and I'm going to try overclocking this shader. So I'm going to start at 2157 and see how it goes from there, I suppose. So unfortunately we've managed to get a lower score than last time. So I suppose we just keep increasing the shader clock until it explodes or it gets higher score. So yeah, we'll do that. See what happens. So I just got 59,105 quite randomly. What I did was I overclocked the core to 873. So yeah, apparently the core can go a lot higher for 3D Mark 03, and it makes a huge difference in the score. So I think I'm going to carry on overclocking the core higher and higher as well. So I have now managed to squeeze 59.454 out of it. So we're going to keep going, see how much higher we can get. I don't think we'll be able to get much higher now. So this could possibly be the final score. So yeah, we'll have to see. Leave a comment about Ryzen underneath the video if you made it this far without falling asleep.